So the first step in adding and subtracting rational expressions is to factor them and find the LCM. So if you were just adding and subtracting normal fractions, if you had 1/7 over 2/3, well, 7 and 3 both go into 21. So I'm going to multiply this by 3 and 3, so I get 3 over 21, and I'm going to multiply 2/3 by 7 and 7, so I get 14 over 21. And then I can add 3 plus 14 is 17 over 21. But that LCM, least common multiple, is 21. I wouldn't put 7 and 3 into 42. I could. They would go into 42. I could even do like 7 and 3 both go into 63. But then when I'm making those numbers higher on the bottom, then my numerator is getting higher, and then I have to reduce it at the end. So your goal is to get the least common multiple, the smallest number. And whenever you have rational expressions, the first step is always to factor. So don't forget, first step is always to factor before you find the LCM. Least common multiple. So 2x plus 4 I can take out a 2, and then I'm left with x plus 2. And then over here, sum to -1, product is -6, so -3 and a +2. So I have x minus 3 and x plus 2. Okay, what do they both have in common? X plus 2. So that is part of my least common multiple, x plus 2. But then I've asked myself, what's missing over here? Well, this left side is missing an x minus 3. So it would need an x minus 3. And then if you ask yourself what's missing on the right side, what's missing on the right side over here is I need a 2, so 2. So that's my least common multiple, is 2 times x minus 3 times x plus 2. Now notice that they both have the x plus 2, because I'm not going to get rid of it. It just means that over here on the left side, I have to multiply by x minus 3. And over here, I have to multiply by a 2, and then they'll both have 2 times x minus 3 times x plus 2. So that's how you find the least common multiple, is factor and see what's the other one missing. So taking a look at this first one, first step is factor. So sum to -3, product of 2 would be -2 and -1. So I'm going to rewrite this as x over x minus 1. Plus 2x minus 1 over x minus 2 times x minus 1. So what's missing over here? They both have an x minus 1, but the left side I'm missing x minus 2. So I'm going to multiply by x minus 2 on the top and on the bottom. And I'm not going to worry about redistributing the bottom. I factored it, leave it factored. So just leave it like that. But in my numerator, if I have x times x minus 2, that's x squared minus 2x. And now that they have a common denominator, I can go ahead and add. So there are some steps with these. I'm factoring. I need to find my least common multiple. I also need to state the restrictions. So can't forget that step. So state your restrictions. After you've done that, you've factored, you've given it the least common multiple, you've stated your restrictions. Now you can go ahead and add or subtract. And after you add or subtract, you need to double check if anything cancels. And you'll see what I mean here in just a second. And that step has several steps within it, but you basically just need to find out if anything else cancels. So now that I'm here, I have my common denominator. So my common denominator is x minus 2 times x minus 1. Which means that x cannot be positive 2 or positive 1. And then now I'm going to look at my numerator. So x squared minus 2x plus 2x minus 1. Those 2x's would cancel out. I'm left with x squared minus 1. So I factored. I found the least common multiple. I stated the restrictions. And now I need to check. I added, and I need to check if anything cancels. So hopefully something's going off in here. X squared minus 1 is a difference of squares. That would factor to this. X plus 1 times x minus 1. And what did I have in the denominator? X minus 2 times x minus 1. And that's what I mean when I say double check if anything cancels. So see if you can factor your numerator. And now that cancels out. And I'm left with x plus 1 over x minus 2. And remember, the x cannot be positive 1 or 2. And that's it. So similar to adding and subtracting fractions, you have to find the least common, we call it denominator, right? LCD, so find the least common denominator and go from there. So taking a look at this one, remember factor first. So this is going to factor, I can take out an x, so it would be x minus 1. Which means that looking at these denominators, I need an x over here. So I'm going to multiply by x on the bottom and on the top. And remember, I'm not going to worry about factoring, like leave the bottom as factored out. So it's the bottom is going to say x times x minus 1 minus the other fraction was also x times x minus 1 with a negative 2 on top. But x times x plus 1 is now going to be x squared plus x. Just like that. Okay, state your restrictions. So based on my denominator, x cannot be 0 because of that piece right there, or 1. So I know that. So I factored, I stated my restrictions. Now I'm just going to go through and add. And remember that 2 negatives make a positive. So that's why I say add there. If this had just been that, then I would be subtracting, but you do have to be careful and look out for those negatives. If there's more than one piece, it means you're subtracting more than one piece. So those 2 negatives are going to make a positive, and I'm going to have x squared plus x plus 2 all over x times x minus 1. And then I need to check my numerator to see, is there anything that factors to? Is that even factorable? Sum to 1, product of 2. Well, I could do 1 and 1, that doesn't work. 1, negative 1 doesn't work. Negative 1, negative 1. So that's not factorable, so then this is it. This is our answer, just like this. So find your LCD, factor, find your LCD, state your restrictions, go from there. So taking a look at this one, I'm going to give you a chance to see if you can factor and do the LCD from here. Start by factoring and then ask yourself what's missing in the bottoms.